Welcome to the Shepherd Podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Previous episodes, if you've been watching, we filmed in my office. Well, today we've decided to create a studio. We're actually up in the youth room in the church, but we can make it look however we want it to look. And so this is a neat way to be able to do these now. So welcome to the set of the Shepherd Podcast. And we've had great guests on our podcast, and today is someone I've been very excited to get to visit with, and that is Mikki Senkarik. Thank you, Mikki, for joining us today.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, many of you have probably seen and recognized Mikki. She is the team leader for our Welcome Home team, and so she's been present at services, taking temperatures and photos and welcoming people and moving all over the place because there's just so many moving parts. So you've probably seen her, and she's someone who has a really fascinating life story. You've been a lot of places, done a lot of things. So there's a lot to talk about. So I thought, Mikki, we would start out, first of all, just telling us about your profession as a painter. Not everybody will know that, but that's a really huge part of your life. Big part of your identity is being an artist. So can you tell us about your profession as a painter? What do you do during the day?
I paint oil paintings. I do mainly, one of my galleries calls my paintings magical impressionism or romantic impressionism. And it's oil paintings on canvas. My studio is in my living room. You walk in the front door and there's an easel and paints and just you walk right into an artist studio, and that's what I do most of the day long. I paint paintings. I'm represented in galleries in Santa Fe and Wimberley, just up the road, and also Napa Valley, California. And they show my paintings, and I just do paintings. I send them off to the gallery. When they sell, then we split it 50-50. Mm-hmm. And so that's how Jack and I have made a living for years. I also have a bunch of collectors, and very fortunate, God has blessed me with collectors who keep coming back for more paintings. So a lot of my work is commissions, or we like to call them collaborations, because I'll take their ideas and my ideas and we kind of put them all together and shake them up and come up with a painting that's going to be really, something that they're going to enjoy the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Well, and I've been on the other end of that, working with you on a beautiful painting that you did of when Emma was born, and that one hangs right above our fireplace in the house, and very special to us. So I'm sure that the others who have collaborated with you have enjoyed that experience and the final product. I'm curious, what would you say is the split between artwork that ends up in a gallery versus commissions from individuals? What percentage for each?
Probably my commissions now are 30 to 35% of the paintings that I do.
So the majority is in the galleries?
The majority is in the galleries, but that's really shifting.
Is it?
Over the years, it's just become shifting. And I have a lot of people who find me on Google. I've been writing a blog now since 10 years, 2010. Mm-hmm. And showing the step-by-step process as I paint. I have video demonstrations, and consequently, my images show up on Google. Somebody will put in Tuscany landscape or Tuscany flowers or whatever, and some of my paintings will come up. They'll email me and then contact me directly.
Wow. I was wondering if the internet age is responsible for that shift. Even today, fewer people are going into brick and mortar stores, and more people are shopping on Amazon and things like that. So I'm wondering if that shift will continue even more.
I imagine it will, and I have to be very diligent in when new people come to me. I have to make sure, I really work to find out where they have seen my art. Yeah. Because if they have seen it in one of my galleries, even if they've walked by the gallery at night and the gallery was lit up and they saw my painting in the window, if they did see my art in one of my galleries, then ethically, then I need to pay the gallery their commission. Because they have displayed my work, they have a lot of expense involved. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that Jack and I over the years have been very, very careful to really find out, where they've seen my art. And if like I say, if they've walked by a gallery and saw my paintings in there, then hey, I contact the gallery and we work it together.
Wow. So there's some ethical issues that go into that. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Very interesting. And I just want to mention, right in between us is a book here. When we first met, you gave me both editions. You have two different books of your work. So that right there is just an example of something that you painted. Now, you do a lot of scenery.
Yes.
So could you give us a breakdown of the different kinds of art that you do, whether it's scenery or people or, close-up things far away? What do they tend to be like?
The majority, I would say, is architecture with flowers.
Architecture.
And then, like, if I have an open doorway, I may have an ocean out beyond it, or I have a terrace with lots and lots of flowers. I was speaking with a collector, in fact, last night on the phone, and he was telling me that he had purchased a painting in Spain that was he said it doesn't have the Mickey touch. It's all the white stucco buildings with the tile roofs, but he says, there's no bougainvilleas, there's no flowers, and I said, well, in reality, that's probably not all there.
Right.
But I like to really add it in. It's wonderful because I can, on the canvas, I can make the world as I want it to be. I envision a scene in my mind is like this right here is, what would I want if I were living in this building? What would I like to walk out to and see? And the flowers and the scene and the ocean and everything. And then I do, that's the majority of what I do. Is again, it may be a garden scene with just an adobe wall and a red gate and some flowers and maybe a little kitty tucked under the flowers, looking up at a butterfly or a hummingbird. I do portraits on occasion, like I did with you and your family.
And very well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
But
the majority is the garden architecture, ocean, scenery, that type of thing.
Even as you were describing it with words, I thought that is definitely what a Mickey painting looks like. The open doorway, the flowers. So it sounds like there's an element of what's actually there sometimes, plus what you're envisioning in your mind. The most beautiful way to put that setting together.
I don't think I've ever painted a photograph exactly, with the exception of portraits. But as far as this type of thing, I don't think I've ever painted anything like the photograph was. I've always added to, subtracted, just edited.
How interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me about your schedule. I mean, do you clock in at 9 o'clock painting and then it's 5 o'clock and then I don't think it works like that, but what's your normal schedule?
Usually during the week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I get up, exercise, and walk. And then I normally every day get to painting about 10. And I work till 1, take an hour break for lunch, and then usually paint till 5. And now that depends, if collectors call or if I have sketches to do for a commission, it varies. And like now being on the Welcome Home Committee with church, it has been more involved in some of that. So some days I may not get as much painting in, other days I get more. So it's since I work for myself, I work at home. The deadlines I have are if a collector has a birthday or an anniversary or a gallery needs paintings, I have a show. But I can determine my own schedule. But I try to paint between 4 and 6 hours a day. And that's standing at the easel. And I just put on music or a podcast or something from the church or some of your Bible studies or whatever, and just listen to while I paint.
No, great. Yeah, get 2 things done at once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, have you always been a painter? I know you did, was it medical drawings earlier in life? So what has the whole span been? When did the painting come into your life and what were you doing prior to that?
I went to medical school graduated from medical school in 1979 with a Master of Medical Illustration. Went to the Medical College of Georgia in Augusta. And I'd started out, I've always wanted to be an artist. And I started out in fine art in undergraduate school and was just kind of disillusioned. I didn't want to teach, and some of my professors were really very against artists making a living with their art. And so it was kind of an odd situation. I thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to make a living being an artist, so I'm going to go into medicine. And one of my instructors in my pre-med courses mentioned medical illustration, which I had never heard of. But medical illustrators do the drawings in medical books that doctors learn from. Yeah. Anatomy, surgery, whatever. So I have my master's degree in medical illustration.
Wow.
My first job was here at the Health Science Center.
Really? So you invested a lot in that training.
Yes. The training was we took the same first 2 years of medical college or medical school that the medical students did.
Oh, really?
All the gross anatomy, pathology, embryology, all of that stuff.
Oh, wow.
And then in the summers in our third year was a concentration in we were always learning the illustration techniques during that time, but then the last year was a concentration of going into surgery. And actually, like, you can't sketch with a pencil in surgery because of the graphite and the eraser dust in the surgical field.
Okay.
So you'd have to use pens, and we'd have to get dressed and scrubbed, everything just like the surgeons. Mm-hmm. But we would watch the surgery and then take notes, make little sketches, and then break the surgeries down into a step-by-step drawings that the doctors could then learn could teach from.
Yeah.
And in surgery, most of the time, if you take photographs of the surgical field, you can't see the underlying nerves or blood vessels or maybe danger points or places where they want to show that there's something underneath that they have to be careful of. So that's where illustration comes in.
This is fascinating to me on many levels, but one is, so you have a pretty extensive medical background.
Yes, sir.
And I never put two and two together without realizing that. I can see maybe that's part of why you're very passionate about the Welcome Home team, keeping people safe and healthy and having an understanding of how all that works from a medical perspective.
And that's interesting. I had never put that together.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to think, what in the world's an artist doing leading the Welcome Home team?
Yeah.
But you're right. I'd never put that together.
Huh. Okay. All right. Well, this is
Thank you.
Aha moment. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the medical drawing became painting at some point. That became the predominant thing. Was it Jack that was the turning point there? Because, you've mentioned Jack. We've got to get to Jack. Okay. So can you tell people, who is this Jack that we're talking about, and how did you change your life?
Well, to I guess go back a little bit. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family with alcoholism and abuse. Mm-hmm. The blessing was that we went to church. It was a Lutheran church, Missouri Synod, St. Paul Lutheran. Yeah. And that was just an amazing blessing. And then also my mother, instead of giving me coloring books, would say, she encouraged me to draw. I loved horses. She would take one of my little plastic horse models and put it on the table and say, try to draw this. And it taught me that eye-hand coordination. Mm-hmm. And so that really I think that's really the basis of all my drawing skills. And so then as I went through school and went off to medical school and whatever, I really drifted away from God. And I think being in that situation as a little kid, you get the feeling that you're not good enough. I had learned in church, that Jesus loves me, but I never got the no matter what. Mm. And so I just had this skewed vision of, well, I'm just not good enough, that he can't love me. And I just kind of really Jesus was not part of my life. And I got out here to the Health Science Center. I ended up marrying a young man who was working in the same department as me at the Health Science Center. Mm-hmm. And as a lot of people who grow up in abusive situations, I walked right back into the same thing.
Oh, no.
And that relationship was he was an alcoholic, very abusive. And I never, I look back, I never prayed. I never saw Jesus as somebody that was comforting. I was always afraid of not being good enough.
Really?
And so coming home one day, we lived in Helotes. Coming home one day, at that time, 1604 was 2 lanes. And Bandera Road was a little road, not big highway like it is now. Yeah. And I just got to thinking about it. I didn't know how to get out of this. That was 1982 was when Ted and I got married. This was 1989, and it kept getting worse, and I just didn't know how to get out of it. And I began to think about it would be so easy to drive into that concrete abutment at 60 miles an hour and that would be it. And that scared me. That really scared me.
Yeah.
Very shortly after that, I began to get this feeling I really wanted to do some kind of art that was not as regimented as the medical. You can't change the course of an artery or a vein or muscles. I mean, when you're using, this was used to teach doctors how to do surgery, that affected people's lives. Mm-hmm. So I loved horses. And so I started doing some horse drawings and just having fun, charcoal drawings and things. And I met an artist who lived in Helotes. She had a little studio there, Linda Henley. And so one day she called me up and said, Mikki, hey, she said, my friends and I, we have a little art group. We're going to do a little show out at Rolling Oaks Mall. I've got a couple of panels. If you want to come with us and hang some of your drawings out there, I'd love to have you join us. Mm-hmm. So on February 4th, 1990, God sent an angel into my life. Mm-hmm. And we were there, set up at the little show, and all of a sudden everybody started saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe, do you know who that is? He's here. I can't believe he's here. And it's like, who's that? He said, oh, Jack White. He's Texas State artist. I said, well, who's Jack White? I don't know any Jack. It didn't mean anything to me. So he was going from booth to booth, and the ladies were just all, oh my gosh, he's looking at my artwork and everything. So, well, he came into my booth, and to give you an idea, at that time, I weighed about 85 pounds. I mean, I just, so stressed I couldn't eat. I mean, I was just, over the years, the abuse and all had just taken its toll on me. Oh, wow. So, I mean, I was petrified. Here's this famous artist walking into my booth. And so I didn't say a word when he came in, and he went over and started looking at my drawings. And I mean, he really was looking at them. And I mean, seemed like it was weeks before he said a thing. And then, I mean, big, tall Stetson hat, cowboy boots, starched shirt, definite cowboy. And just kind of gruff looking, and this real quiet voice, nice work, ma'am. And I kind of just fell apart. I didn't know what to say. And I was stammering and stuttering, and he just put out his hand and said, hi, I'm Jack. And just started talking. I mean, he had never met anybody he didn't know. Right. And we got to talking, and he was saying, my goodness, he said, you've got beautiful work. And I was telling him I was a medical illustrator. And I asked him, I said, well, very timidly, I said, I know you probably won't want to do this, but would you mind looking at my portfolio? I want to become a fine artist, but I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And he said, sure. He said, I live near Callahan Road. Let's just meet at Chacho's up on Callahan Road. So we did. And we had a couple tacos. He looked at my portfolio. And when we got all done, he said, I want to tell you 2 things. He said, first of all, you have the ability to be a far better painter than I am. And he said, second of all, he said, you're a really sick young girl. Mm. And I just kind of looked at him and I said, well, thank you, sir. And I left. I mean, he said later, he told me, he said, my eyes just had no sparkle. He said, they just looked absolutely dead. He said, I didn't know anything about you, but he said, I knew that you were hurting. He said, and that was it. I went back home to Helotes and everything and was doing my medical illustration. And because at that point I had started my own business freelancing. I was working for publishers up in New York and Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And one day Linda called me and said, oh, that Mr. Jack White called me and said that he wants to meet with all of us, that what had happened was that the Colonial Country Club was going to have the Byron Nelson golf tournament, and they needed artwork for their clubhouse. And they had contacted Jack to see if he had paintings to do it, and he couldn't. He didn't have enough paintings. He said, but I know this group of artists in San Antonio who do beautiful artwork. I'm sure they'd love to have a show up here for you. Mm-hmm. So Linda said, Jack's going to come with the lady and just meet with all of us and tell us what the deal is. Yeah. So we did that, and then he kind of pulled me aside and he said, listen, he said, I've been kind of finding out what your situation is. And he said, now I'm not hitting on you, I'm not adopting you, but here's my phone number. If you ever need help to get out of this, he said, I'll be there. If you need somebody just to talk to, whatever. So probably about 3 weeks later, I called him, and just things had been pretty bad. And so I called him. He said, look, are you going, I had to go to the grocery store. He said, let me meet you. At that time, the HEB was at Babcock and Huebner, but it was across the street from where it is now. And he said, let me meet you. And so he did. And so he met me in the parking lot. He pulls this bird cage out of the back of his trunk. And he said, he gave it to me. And I said, well, what's that for? He said, the door is taped open. He said, birds in a cage can't sing. He said, I cannot reach in and pull you out. He said, if you decide to fly out, I will be here and help you. Make sure you don't fall again. I don't want to adopt you. This is not, anything other than you just need somebody to help you. And so a few weeks after that, one evening things had really been very bad. And so I left. I called up Jack and said, I've left. Help me. I don't know even what to do. And so he helped me rent an apartment and got settled, and I got divorced. And after that, we became really good friends. And he said, I'd love to teach you to paint. And so he did, and started teaching me to paint, and we just became friends, and that developed into love, and we had 26 wonderful years together.
Wow.
So
wow,
very special. He put his career aside to market my career.
Really?
To promote me. Yes.
And he had a big time career.
Big time career.
Am I correct in saying there's a street named after him in downtown San Antonio?
Yes, sir. Down by the courthouse.
And he designed the athletic logo for the Baylor Bears.
And for the Spurs, the very first Spurs team.
And this, wow. I forgot
very first
that
one. Yes.
And he put his career aside to help you build yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the biggest blessing that came out of it was, and I remember you asking me when we were planning the memorial service for Jack. So you said, tell me about Jack's faith. And because Jack had been way back before me, he had been ordained as the Baptist preacher.
Oh, that's right.
And I said, well, Jack's faith, very simple, but very strong. And his whole faith was saved by grace. And I remember you said,
Baptist or was he Lutheran?
You immediately said, oh, he was a Lutheran Baptist.
That's what it was, yes.
But he taught me, he showed me, all those, growing up in the church gave me, I'm so glad I had that foundation. And even though as a kid it didn't get through to me, the grace part, at least I knew of Jesus. And even though I abandoned him, he never abandoned me. He sent Jack to my life to, not only to get me out of that situation, but to teach me about grace, about Jesus' love. And as an artist, you learn to live by faith. It's either feast or famine. You don't know when paintings are going to sell.
Yeah.
The nice thing about a commission is, that when you get that done, you're going to get a paycheck. But as far as sending paintings to a gallery, it may, some paintings sell right out of the box, some paintings sit. So you don't know. And So it really, and I can't tell you the times that when we get a surprise sale, and I mean, we just hold hands and get down on our knees and say, God, forgive us for our little faith. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I felt like Peter sinking in the water and just saying, and just hearing Jesus' words, oh, Mikki, you have such little faith.
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of you. And he will.
Yeah.
I have learned that, particularly these last few years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's there. And that's wow.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing all that. I mean, you went very, very deep, very personal into your life story. And it's going to be a blessing to people who are watching, who are going through some of the things that you went through. You described some low moments in your life. And I'm pretty sure people are watching who are going through low moments. And to know, number one, that they're not alone, that other people have gone through that, and that God can bring you out of it and can bring you into a very good place. I mean,
Absolutely.
The way that God grew your faith and the person you are today and the way you're able to serve him, God's been very faithful.
Oh, incredibly. I mean, just incredibly. And I think the most wonderful thing about it is that even if we run away from him, I mean, that story of the prodigal son, I mean, he is there with wide open arms to say, come on back.
Yes.
I love you.
Yes.
And I'm here for you. And I know it is just, that's brought me through some really tough moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really has.
So let's go to the point in which you're at Shepherd of the Hills. And I mean, right now you've been so involved. I always thought that you'd been a leader in the church for your whole life, just the way that you've stepped into leadership roles. But you've been at Shepherd for how many years now?
I first came in November of 2015.
Yeah.
Jack and I, for years, we traveled. And when we first got together and he said, let's just live and work in places where people go on a week's vacation. So after I started painting, and so the galleries didn't care where we lived. So we had a Ford Explorer. We threw everything on top of it, in it, art supplies, the clothes we needed. We had a little storage unit for tax records and that kind of stuff you have to keep. And then we hit the road, and we would go lease an unfurnished apartment and be in places for 6 months. So, I mean, we've lived in Hawaii 3 different times. We've lived Myrtle Beach, Cocoa Beach, Longboat Key, Florida, Galveston, North Padre Island. Then we've lived California coast. Gosh, we've lived Morro Bay, Carlsbad by the Sea, Carmel. We've lived there. We lived in Las Vegas. That's probably one of the few places that wasn't on the coast. And in Las Vegas, I got to actually be a leprechaun in the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Oh.
The last parade down Fremont Street before they closed it for the Fremont Street Experience.
Oh.
And we met some friends there who were had a radio station. And so we got to go to all kinds of things with them. But so we bounced around the country. During 9/11, we were on Longboat Key, Florida, just right near Sarasota. And so we moved, our galleries were all out southwest, so we moved out to Carefree, Arizona to be closer to our galleries. And then from Carefree, then we moved to North Padre Island, then Floresville. And during that time in 2004, Jack was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And when we went to the doctor, his PSA was 596. At the Mayo Clinic, they had never seen one that high.
Really?
And they gave him just a few months to live. And Jack, I'll never forget it, the doctor said, you need to get your things in order. Jack said, we're going to beat this. We've got God on our side. And the doctor said, you don't know how serious this is. And I looked at him and I said, well, you don't know how serious we are.
Mm.
And we prayed, and lots of praying, our friends all prayed and everything. And Jack went through radiation. He had lost the use of his legs because the cancer had gone into his spine. He started being able to walk. The doctors were they couldn't believe it the day he hobbled into their office with using the cane. And, but he lived 12 years. We moved here in San Antonio in 2014 because he did have to go on kidney dialysis. And so our doctors were up here. So we moved here in 2014. And I really we traveled so much, we never had a church home. Mm-hmm. When we moved up here, I really began feeling the need for a church home, and God brought me to Shepherd.
Yeah.
I went online because of the dialysis and all the stuff because we did it at home, that all was more, a lot was done in the morning. So church in the morning wasn't really good for me. But when I saw the Saturday evening service, I came, and the first time I came, it's like, I'm home. This is it. I love it. And so came November 2015, became a member in 2016. Yeah. Jack died in July, and then I think December. Yeah. And Jason Schiller-Strom was in my new member class. That's Jason right. And Tracy.
Yeah, good class.
And it's really interesting to see how our careers in the church have kind of paralleled.
Yeah.
Because I've become a deaconess, he's become elder. And it makes sense, he's doctor, perfect for head elder now.
Yeah.
And that's when I was thinking, well, I'm not sure what an artist has to do with the Welcome Home team, but then you brought it up with the my medical background. Yeah. I never even equated that.
Yeah.
But that's, I fell in love with Shepherd, the people, the family, everybody's so wonderful.
I remember first getting to know you. You would come early to the Saturday evening service, and you would listen to the band practice the music ahead of time. And I remember talking, and you were a visitor, and you intended to be a visitor for a period of time because you were caring for your husband who was ill. And one of the great joys for me in ministry is I had the chance to meet Jack in the hospital before he passed, and so that I hold on to that as very meaningful. And then after Jack passed away, and you're deciding what's the next chapter of life going to look like, and you began to get involved here, and it's been quite a chapter of life for you. You have gotten so involved.
Oh, and a totally unexpected chapter.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you had told me 4 years ago I'd be doing in the church what I'm doing now, I would have just said, I just don't think so.
And it started with international ministry, and then you joined the board of elders and deaconesses, and then when there was a need for assistance with the Welcome Home team, you stepped up for that. But it started with international ministry.
Yes. And Alice
Clement. Yes.
Alice pestered me and pestered me and pestered me, and she finally got me. And in fact, Leon was also in my new member class.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Leon Ward.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of, after listening to her talk about the Chinese and all they were dealing with and everything, and how they are so spiritually empty, that they come needing, they have a spiritual void that they just, in their country, that's totally forbidden. And so they come here and having that need, and I just began to feel that pull that, well, maybe this is something I would be interested in.
Yeah.
And so Alice and I have worked a long time on that. And I'm so busy right now with the Welcome Home team, I've not been able to spend as much time with the international ministry, but I still work with Alice and try to jump into their Zoom Bible studies now and then.
Yeah. Yeah. So all that involvement, and one thing that I've learned about you over time is you don't do things halfway. When you do something, you are all in, you give it your best effort. Where does that come from?
I think the way you said it, it's funny. Jack used to always say, Mickey's like a steam engine. If you just point her in the right direction and get out of the way, just let her go. But then when that steam runs out, she just collapses. But I think my father was a workaholic, and then I also remember a lot of my parents would always say, "Don't do something unless you're going to do it right." Don't do it halfway. And I think that's something that just really always settled with me. I think some of it too is it just may be inherent in personality, because I know my grandmother used to say that I was a mini adult. I never went through, I was never a child. I was always,
Sure.
But I know my brothers are not, we're all different. So, but I think a lot of that is, I think just hearing that, and then my father was very organized, and I'm sure that helped. And then over the years, with Jack and I, with traveling like we did, we had to be very organized to have exactly what we needed, and the art supplies, and everything has its place, because you don't want to spend a lot of time hunting for something when you need it.
Right.
It just is something I think that maybe was a part of my personality, and then just developed over the years.
Sure. So outside of painting and church involvement, do you have other hobbies? You like working in the yard?
Love to garden.
Yeah.
Flowers, yeah.
Yeah.
Like to get out. In fact, the mornings I'm not exercising and doing my walk, then that's the mornings I get out and walk, or water and trim the bushes and talk to the flowers.
Yeah.
Encourage them.
Encourage them.
I can't, come on. HEB knows me well. They have all those plants out front before you walk in.
Yeah.
I can't ever seem to get into the store without getting a flower or something in my basket.
Yeah. So if people want to learn more about you, your artwork, if they want to contact you, what's the best way to do that?
If they see me in church, grab me, or I have a website, www.senkarik.com, and SENKARIK.com. And then I also have a blog where I show the step-by-step processes I paint, which is I think a lot of people enjoy that.
Oh, it's
Videos,
very educational.
Everything.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, very good. Well, I would encourage anybody to check out Mikki's website, and you won't get an interview much better than this one. I've just enjoyed this so much. Mikki, thank you for your time. Thank you for opening up and sharing. And I know when people see you after watching this, they're going to have a whole new perspective. There's a lot that goes into being Mikki.
Oh.
And I want to thank you so much for your leadership of our Welcome Home team and for all that you do for the church.
Well, thank you. And I just appreciate, you guys, Melody, Micah, everybody has been so supportive and so encouraging for me, because like I say, this was a huge leap of faith God said, follow me. And I was saying, no, all the way. But I finally said, okay, Lord, I know that you'll give me what I need to do the task you set before me. Mm-hmm. And the people here, the team members, everybody in the congregation has been so supportive and so encouraging. And it's been amazing. And I thank everyone. All of you, thank you. It's just, you're my family, and I just love you.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And I look forward to bringing you more great people from within our church. And so please take care of yourself and stay healthy. God's blessings to you. Thank you for watching.